Hello, this is Chef Scott, continuing staff and contractor and volunteer training. How are you? We hope you're having a lot of fun in this. I know it's a lot of material. Thank goodness you don't have to go through it in one day or in one sitting. But these are real important things to touch upon so that your mind gets ready to just build the best program for the kids and that you know how to conduct yourself and your staff during these sessions. One of the fun things to teach kids is about measuring, and it's very important. To be honest with you, this is our measuring guide. We have solids, we have liquids, and on the back we have unusual funky things like peanut butter and brown sugar. The reason this is so important is there's adults that don't even measure. They just throw things in their food and expect it to come out perfect, just like the recipe. But the trick is, if you're not going to measure correctly, there's a certain jeopardy for the recipe. And therefore, if kids don't have a lot of money to have, if you don't have a lot of supplies for a second run or a third run or a fourth run, somebody dropped it on the floor, well, you're going to want them to measure and be as accurate as they can. Now, use of measuring cups and measuring spoons is not exactly super duper required in your program, even though you have them. I want you to encourage kids to use them. Let them know that it's so critical. Now, let me tell you the story of how the measurements work, okay? 100 years ago, the recipes were take a handful of this, grab a pinch of that, and a spoonful of that, and a three-finger pinch of that, and a hand. These are not equal measures. In fact, if I was a chef and people came to my, let's say I had a bed and breakfast, and they were going to eat with us, I had to be on duty because, if I'm telling my assistant or other people on duty when I'm not, take a handful of this and a pinch of that and a spoon of that and just grab a bunch of this. These words aren't even taught, for the most part, in kindergarten or pre-K in Texas. It's because they're not equal standards. In fact, they're not standards at all. They give somebody a visual idea, but an idea is not a measurement. So what happened is a gentleman named Augustus Escoffier, a French guy. I bet he was rude. I bet he tore people up. He was a very tough Frenchman, and believe me, working for French chefs is really, really tough. I had a very difficult time with Jean-Louis Paladin. He was as French as they come, and he was also an A-list chef and celebrity, international celebrity. And I was very honored to be part of his group. But I got to tell you, Escoffier developed the standards. He came up with the cups. He came up with a cup measure, half cup measure, quarter cup measure, third cup measure, and then he came up with a tablespoon, teaspoon, half teaspoon, quarter teaspoon, and every now and then a little eighth of a teaspoon. Okay? And it's a lot of fun to teach measuring, but when you have adults that can't measure, believe me, the kids can't measure much unless there's an intercession like what we offer. And we want to offer it strongly. We want to make sure that these kids measure and understand how to measure. If they choose not to use things and they're away from us, that's fine. That's their choice. But when they're in our programs, we want to let them know how cool it is to measure. You get to work with the tools. And you get to do your recipe correctly. And that brings you up on the leaderboard, especially when it comes to competition. A lot of parents just can't take sugar and salt and pour in their hands and then measure it perfectly. Oh, this is exactly 1 teaspoon. Recipes were very vague 100 years ago. And Augustus Escoffier made standards. He said, there needs to be a list of equipment needed. There's got to be a list of ingredients. There has to be good instructions to follow. And these were the days before you could really get pictures in. In fact, what's funny is, if you're not a culinary student, then you don't know this. But our cookbooks in culinary arts, there's not one picture in them. They want you to imagine, and they want you to work through the technical process so that you don't have any preconceived ideas of what you're doing, except for what's being demonstrated in front of you. And that's so that focus can be, very complete. You're focused on what you're doing. It's usually your first time. Secondly, you're going to pay attention because there is no other source of that information while you're learning. It's being demoed. So you are stuck with the instructor showing you that. But Escoffier set these standards up. Now, the funny thing is, when we go from tablespoons, teaspoons, and all the teaspoon measures to cups, the fascinating thing is the tablespoon sticks out like a sore thumb. The tablespoon is actually a half an ounce. Yes, a half a fluid ounce. And when you have two of them, you have an ounce. And if you take the smallest cup, a quarter cup, there's 2 ounces in a quarter cup. There's 8 ounces in a cup. So then kids can really start connecting what you're talking about. The graduation from spoons to cups. And they'll go home and they'll actually tease their parents. Do you know how many tablespoons are in, It's a lot of fun, and you want to teach that. Let the parents know you're teaching the kids the really good technical stuff. And if anything, we don't know what it's like at home. They may yell and scream about things being messed up at home. Maybe the husband blames the wife or vice versa. Maybe they have food fights in their homes. We don't know. But in any case, our job is to keep the child out of the firing line. Remember, Chefsville exists to reduce family violence, abuse, and neglect. And one of the ways we do that is modeling kitchen behaviors, adult behaviors. And, learning how to measure can really bring down somebody's anxiety level to the degree where they can work with their kids in the kitchen or their family members, and so they're getting all angry. Yeah, you can't measure anything you don't know. We want to stop all that snotness that goes on in the kitchen, and this is one way to do it. So we want the kids to know about this Escoffier. We want them to know about the tools to measure, and we want them to become very competent and proficient with it. To make this fun, you can do a game. We can set up a measuring bowl with water in it and an empty bowl next to it, and then have the kids run a race where they empty one bowl and fill up a certain measure using the teaspoons or tablespoons. And what's even fun is they'll learn to work together as their team, they'll cheer on their team, and the kids will get a sense of that belonging that I was describing a few sessions back. And that's what we want to do. We want to really build a sense of belonging where the kids are welcomed into our programs and feel like they are very special and that they belong in our programs. And having great races and activities, physical activities, on top of fantastic food, just makes for a complete, wonderful experience. This is Chef Scott. I'll see you at the next session. Thank you so much.